Thank you for joining us. We so often talk about the need to enhance STEM education, which is science, technology, engineering, and math. But what about STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math? So today we'll focus on art and organic expressionism, which is a new mode of art that combines the scientific insights of New Age with humanity's ancient wisdom. Our guest today is the internationally renowned visionary artist, Tia Crystal, who has a following of internationally well-known collectors who are all attracted by her enchanting contemporary organic style and personality, of course. Her work is unmatched in its color, scope, variety, and deep spiritual meaning. It's compared to the likes of Peter Max and Marc Chagall and other world-famous artists. We'll meet Tia Crystal right after these messages. With us now is Tia Crystal. It's such a pleasure finally to get you on the show.
Thank you for inviting me on your show.
Absolute pleasure. We have so much in common. I was born in London, so were you, and here we are in Boca Raton of all places.
Yes, we're in paradise. Yeah, especially when you phone your family back in London. You don't definitely want to tell them where you are or that you're not wearing a thick coat or a woolly hat and you're looking into the deliciousness of the sea and going off to have a cocktail by the beach. You definitely don't want to tell them that one.
Of course, and this is Florida at its best in the winter.
Yes.
Lovely weather, perfect. Tia, tell us a little bit about your artwork.
I paint visions, and you know, it's been a hard thing to say that that's something that I do, but I found a paintbrush lying on the ground 10 years ago. I've never had an art lesson, and somehow or other when my art reaches wherever it hangs, people feel a difference in the energy in their house. And I paint emotions, I paint peace, I paint tranquility, I paint what I feel this world is looking to have. And it's up to us to create it. As Gandhi says, be the change. That's what I paint, that change.
Mahatma Gandhi, show us some of your paintings. Describe them for us.
They are full of color and depth. They're encrusted with the crystals that we find in the earth. They hold a dimension to them that when you stand in front of them, they move you. They're not flat. Life is not flat. We are not flat. And so I want to create works of art that are alive, organic, inspirational, that as you stand there, it moves you, like fine music, fine wine, a beautiful child that's just come into the world, it moves you to the depth of your soul. That's my art. This particular painting, Adam and Eve, is my interpretation of what Adam and Eve is in our lives today. I believe that we are the masculine and the feminine, we're both, and that more of the feminine, more of the nurturer, more of the compassionate part of us needs to be felt. We create war after war after war. No mother would go to war. And so this is my interpretation of how the larger part of it, the feminine, is becoming much more predominant, much more needed in our world today. And imagination is the way of creativity. If you have an imagination, you can create anything in the world. And that's what we're needing to tap more into, is the imagination. And especially in schools, the part that would be taken out of a curriculum before anything would be art, would be creativity. Why would you squash that? That's the first thing that would create the world we want to live in today.
One of our civilization's few redeeming features is art. What are your thoughts on the significance of art in general?
Art's a story. It's a storyteller. When you travel to Europe and you go through the centuries of different artists presenting what they have seen. A lot of times, though, in the art, there's tragedy and pain and suffering. Art is in the eye of the beholder. When I've traveled to Europe and seen some beautiful pieces of artwork that through the centuries some people, friends of mine, have collected, there is a lot of beauty and a lot of light and a lot of goodness in it. In fact, when I was in Italy, when I found my paintbrush, I met a beautiful artist, and he painted the suffering of Jesus in light without any darkness. So for me, art is a storyteller to show us what we have had, but what we can have if we choose it to be.
You mentioned art, and I'm thinking of education. What are your thoughts with a view to the need in including art, not only in science, technology, engineering, and math, but some people advocate STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math, incorporating art as well?
Could we say that art is a science anyway? Because if you look at fractal art, that's a science. There's a fraction of something. If we stimulate a child with calmness and beauty and pleasure, and take them out of the rat race of computers and technology and fighting with these war games that they tend to do from a very young age, whether they have 16 plus on it or not. And I was one of those mothers that let her son play with one of those, knowing that he was actually a grounded child, because I did paint with him. I did teach him the better parts of humility and compassion in life. But with the artwork, if children stay in their imagination, then they will find a balance. We're not in balance. You have to stay in your imagination to understand humanity, to understand the gift of life. Art is a gift, and in it you can see the reflection of life. If we take that away from children, what are we teaching them? And these children are our next leaders, and they will be these wonderful judges and wonderful attorneys and accountants and film directors and producers. But if they don't have the imagination, they're empty.
So how do you see the challenges facing education and, in fact, society as a whole at this time?
I see life in what you're asking a little bit like Chinese whispers. Do we ever really know what to believe? One says this and another says that. All I know is that there's such goodness in our world, and there is such fear in our world too, and control. And it's up to us to make sure that the goodness exists, to not judge the fact that someone, an extremist, wants to take another's life. Instead of judging them, let's teach them that that is wrong. I'm working very strongly with Holocaust survivors. I had a huge fundraiser, and I was so touched by one of the interviews where this lady said, life is for the living. Another one, a beautiful gentleman who he had been shot in the head. He shouldn't have even survived. And he met the German chancellor, chancellor, a few weeks ago, and they both embraced.
Why do you feel it's essential for neither Jew nor Gentile to be permitted to forget the atrocities that were perpetrated against not only Jews in World War II, but others? Why is it important for the world to learn a lesson?
It's happening again, even bigger this time. We as humanity have a responsibility for each other. I'm no better and I'm no more, I'm no less than you and the person that stands next to you and the person that stands next to you. How do we learn from history if we keep recreating it? How do we understand it? By knowing who we are. When I was in Italy, I wrote a prayer about world peace. And part of it is that to know peace is to want it. If you don't know it, how can you create it? How can you create peace if you yourself don't have peace inside. You have to feel peace. Once you do, once the chatter in the mind and your judgments lessen, you realize that you couldn't pick up an arm and hurt someone. You would actually want to go and shield someone. How wonderful would it be if someone said, no, I'm not going to behead this person. I'm going to throw my arms down. And the person next to him says, me too. And the person says next to me too. Could it be that simple that we could change the world? My art is about changing the world. My life is about changing the world. And if I have to stand and shield someone to do something, I would. I feel blessed to have a life, but I also know I'm here to teach what love is.
What a profound, essential cause, and beautiful thoughts you have there. Albert Einstein said, one of the problems is that kindness is perceived by many as a weakness.
Yes. Someone said that to me once. Your perception, you're entitled to. My reality, I own. I painted Einstein. I can show that to you. Einstein's painting says love and joy.
Your interpretation of what is essential in this world is most interesting, and I'd like us to continue, but we have to pause for these commercial messages. We'll be right back. We're back with Tia Crystal. Tia, you visited Israel and you've seen some of the challenges this tiny country faces surrounded in a hostile neighborhood. What are your thoughts with regard to that reality?
When you go to Israel, and we've both been there, they don't give up on life. The reality is the reality. No one knows what's going to be in our day at any time. But the Israelis live life to the fullest and don't let life be taken from them. My favorite place in the whole wide world is Jerusalem. To me, it's magical. It's like so many worlds living together in one place, and the history, the beauty, the message, to me, that is Israel. Jerusalem is Israel to me. And it's about hope. They don't give up. Israel is a peaceful, beautiful place that wants to be allowed to grow and allow a tribe of people to grow the way that is meant to be. Israel is peace. Israel is hope. It stands for that. That's to me what I feel when someone asks me, what does Israel represent to you?
How beautifully said. What are your thoughts with regard to the threats Israel actually faces on a daily basis, though?
I believe that we make our own reality. Yes, it's a scary world out there. Yes, the atrocities that happen, when I read them, Richard, or I watch them, I feel like my heart is being ripped out of my chest. What can you do to change it? I wish I was a billion of me that could go in there and scoop up the children that are being murdered, the young soldiers. I wish I could do so much, but I can't. So I do what I can, and I don't always tend to watch TV, and I don't always tend to read the newspapers, because I know when I do, I want to do something to change it.
Dwelling on bad news and negatives and things we cannot change certainly is frustrating and painful, and you're focusing on what you can change. Being creative and artistic and making a difference in the world is a wonderful thing.
I have always felt different, even as a little girl. I always felt that I had a purpose here. And before my art became my focus, and still is, I had always energy that ran through my hands. I can't still today tell you what it is.
So if aliens from outer space landed on Earth and sat with us at the table here right now, and they asked us what we do, I'd be very embarrassed. However, to be honest, and I'm not charging you for this compliment at all, if they would meet people such as yourself, they'd say, hey, maybe humanity does have some justification on this planet. Otherwise, some people describe humanity as an evolutionary mistake. We're halfway from the ancestral ape to what must come next, with, of course, the exception of yourself. An obvious next step would be for you to lead tours to Israel, Tia Crystal tours to Israel, to experience firsthand what Israel is all about. A real pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Richard. I look forward to that.
Thank you. I'll be right back.